Here at Butler County Board of DD. So thank you so much for being with us today. I know your guys' plates are very full and we're really excited to talk about that later. So really we wanted to spend the majority of this time with you guys just saying how appreciative we are. It kind of worked out great timing wise for DSP Appreciation Week last week. So I will go over a very few quick provider updates here at the beginning, and then we'll kind of dive into some more like fun, fascinating stuff. So just to kind of mention a few things going on in provider world. I know we've talked a lot about PSM, so that closure on DODD, that system, that provider management system being closed. We are still looking at a projected date of October 1st for that to reopen under PNM, which is now going to be through Medicaid. So I did want to just throw that out there. They're still looking at that October timeline for that to reopen. Also, I think a lot of providers are getting confused because ODM is sending a lot of emails out about that lately with training opportunities. None of those are mandated. You don't have to do those, but by all means, they have resourceful information in them if you have the time and want to do those. We have been told by DODD they're going to be working on their own specific trainings, which would be a little more helpful for DODD specific providers. So hopefully more to come on that, but that system is still currently closed and projected to open soon. And then I know we talked, I believe last time about the new Ohio ITMS system launching that got pushed back just a little bit. So I wanted to throw that on the agenda as well. That is now launching on August 31st. On the agenda, there's a link that's going to have a lot of great resources and video guides on kind of what that new system is going to look like. So I wanted to provide that to you guys as well. And then kind of lastly, for some of the newer updates, the outcome tracking system, I know we've talked about this in the past, that is set to open up for the adult day and employment providers. And that's capturing how people who receive services are spending their days. And so there's some great resource guides on that agenda as well. If you have questions, feel free to reach out anytime on that. I'm happy to help with that piece. And then towards the bottom, we'd like to always add some trainings on there. OSAS has done a wonderful job at provider trainings. They're well attended. They've gotten great feedback from them. I highly recommend them. So there's a couple left this year. September 29th, we've got the behavioral supports. Obviously a lot of changes with that role coming up, so that'd be a great one to go to. And then October 27th, we have UI and MUIs are going to be reviewing. And then lastly, there is a webinar opportunity there. It's going to talk more about that importance of wellness in the workplace. And I'll have that registration link on the meeting minutes when I send that out if anyone's interested in that one. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing here. And next we have Patricia and Cassie, who are public relation coordinators, to kind of talk about how we did some fun stuff and how we got to do DSP Appreciation Week and celebrate all of you guys. Whenever you guys are ready.
Thanks, Amy. So I'm Patricia. This is my colleague, Cassie.
Hello.
Hi. And so we just wanted to talk to you today about a couple of things that we did last week to celebrate DSPs. And before we dive into that, I really just want to thank you each for all the work that you do. You guys are the lifeblood that helps our mission be fruitful. And the work that you do every single day is so extraordinary. So everything that we did to say thank you, like it's from the bottom of our hearts. And we, wish we could shout it from the rooftops every single day because you guys are incredible. So thank you for being such amazing partners and for making such a difference for the people you support. So as you all know, last week was DSP Appreciation Week, and we've done a handful of things. We had thank you cards hand signed by members of our board and sent those out to independent providers. A whole team of volunteers from our staff went and delivered cookies to places of businesses for agency providers, and they were able to walk in those doors and deliver cookies and share their heartfelt thank you and gratitude. And then we've had signs that we've gotten out throughout the county. We have probably about 75 yard signs throughout the county that say thank a caregiver. And then we have banners. I'm sure some of you have seen the larger banners along some busier roadways with that same messaging. That's super exciting too, because that kind of gives some consistency to the message and helps raise awareness about what you guys are I actually know of at least one person, and one doesn't sound exciting, but that's the only one I know of, and I'm sure there are plenty more, that has looked into a career as a DSP as a result of that. So that's really exciting. And also that messaging has spread to other counties as well. So that's really awesome. And then Cassie's going to share, a couple other things that we did throughout the week.
Yeah, so the exciting thing is kind of what we have done just in our department and overall. I have noticed, as Patricia has, other counties are going to do it too. They're starting to do what we're doing. They even used our the sign that we developed. I don't know what county it was. I can't remember offhand, but same sign, same banner. So the things that we're doing, other people are copying, and I'm okay with being copied when it comes to this. So I mean, I think it's just awesome. So we did hold a honkathon. A honkathon, basically, we went ahead and created these beautiful signs, had them actually printed off, and you should have seen them. I mean, there was 6 or 7 different signs that we developed and went in downtown Hamilton in front of Inside Out Art Inspiration Studios. And it was from 12 to 1, and just had people honk. We had the whole staff out there, a ton of volunteers holding up signs right in downtown Hamilton. It was so exciting that Channel 12 decided to show up and cover, thanks to Patricia letting them know here, and interviewed Courtney, our community advocate, and a great, wonderful DSP that previously worked for us. Is that correct? Terry. So I don't know if you guys saw the segment, but it is on our website. So that's really exciting to us. I mean, to have it out there throughout Cincinnati, what we're doing, and to encourage others to do the same. So we were pretty excited about that. We also did some Facebook Lives, did some different photos, and the reviews on social media were unreal. I mean, I know that the Facebook Live that we did, it's still getting views. I know when I last looked, I think it's at 1,000 at this point. It's just unreal. I mean, the support in the community. Other than that, I mean, thank you. Like Patricia said, we are so happy, and we want to continue this, keep the ball rolling, and thank you guys for your support. And we're hoping to pretty much do the same thing next year, only make it better and better every year. So yeah, so thanks for letting us share. And anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. But also, just to conclude, we did interview some self-advocates from our Speak Up group, and they just also wanted to share their message of gratitude. So I'm going to share that video with you, and that's on our Facebook and on our website and everything. So if you wanted to see that or share it with your coworkers later, that's an easy way to get to it. So let me just share. When I start this, if somebody could just give me a thumbs up that you can hear it.
It's DSP Caregiver Appreciation Month.
Thanks, Luna.
What better way to celebrate than by asking those we serve, why are you grateful for the people that support you?
Hi, my name is Morgan Gattermeyer, and I am grateful to the people who support me, because I would not be able to do all the things that I do in the community. I would not have a job at Inside Out Studio. I would not have an HPC that gets me out once in a while to do whatever we need to do. So I want to thank everyone who is out there supporting all of us individuals here with disabilities. Thank you so much, and keep up the great work.
I'm thankful for people who support me. The things I can do, like go to the art studio, have fun, be with friends, enjoying what I do best, having fun. The opportunity to do stuff outside the community, and I just love it. It gives me the power to do what I do best, making art, clay, glass. I want to thank you for everybody who support me.
I also thank you for my family, my support coordinator, Inside Out Studios staff, and my mom and the Inside Out people. I like to do art, like glass, windows, commissions, stuff like that. Thank you, DSPs.
I am very thankful to be more disabilities and to be respected and to have great abilities to be respected together and happy students. Without the happy friends to make some fun. Golfing course and throwing a cornhole. And thank you, Butler County Disabilities. And thank you for the Best Buddies fan. And thank you for watching.
She's helped me go places, and she took me out to eat. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all that you have done, and without your help, I wouldn't have all the opportunities that I've had. Project Life and Project Search, as well as a variety of other programs, but I've just had a bunch of opportunities throughout the county. Yes, they also helped me find a job at Kroger before the pandemic. Thank you again, and it's been nice meeting everybody. Thank you, DSP.
Thank you to all the DSPs and caregivers who go above and beyond every day. We appreciate you.
And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. What a great video to spread appreciation to everything that you guys do. We truly can't thank you enough ever for that. And that's really a perfect segue into our presentation. I am super excited, super excited for this. We have Luna and Glenn from Joy Channel. I've had the pleasure of hearing them speak a few times. I always get so many great takeaways and always leave feeling so refreshed after they talk. So you guys are in for a treat. So we're very excited to have them. So Luna and Glenn, whenever you're ready.
Hey, everybody. A lot of familiar names and faces here. But for those of you who haven't had a chance to meet me, I'm Glenn Career. Luna.
Hi, everyone. And thank you for having us. What a touching video to come in on. I'm Luna Malbrough, the founder of Joy Channel. So excited to be here with all of you and reconnect with all of you today.
Excellent. And today, a lot of this is about, hey, how are you going to be taking care of yourself and how are you going to balance your plate? So it was really kind of exciting to see that potential training for self-care, because that's going to be a lot of the focus of what we do today. But just to share out, we came up with a lot of plate puns in designing today's session, but really is about understanding what your resources are and how you can best maximize them. Is that coming through clear for everybody? Wonderful. But before we get into a lot of the nitty-gritties of some of the tactics and skills, we want to have a little fun with you, and we're going to start with some recognition and appreciation of yourselves. So I'm going to be dropping into the chat a link, and it is to a website called Mentimeter. If you click through on this, it's going to take you to a little prompt, and that prompt is going to be the fact that you have just won a unique award that only you can win. What would be written on this trophy? So what is the unique award that only you would win? What's going to be on the trophy? So if you follow that link on Mentimeter that's in the chat, it'll take you and you'll be able to write this. These things are going to populate anonymously, but as they come in, we're going to be seeing and sharing what folks think that their trophy would say. You are amazing. Straightforward, to the point, elegant in its simplicity. I love that one. Best omelet maker. I love that one because I just made some omelets this morning and I want to see who my sensei could be. All right, let's see some more coming in. Oh, at least put one in the chat. Very selfless and your individuals love you for what you do for them. I love that. Keep on keeping on, reigning champion. See that? A very resourceful mom in DSP who seeks out fun adventures. I'm excited for that one because fall's coming around and people are into the fall activities. So seek those adventures. Best hugger. Your effort will be rewarded. Following Jesus to be a loving and caring sister. Best listener with an exclamation point. Bringing it home. Worth the extra inscription cost. Easy. Best cat mom. Best laugh with the big lol behind it. I think that we could even put like an emoji in that one. Little extra graphics touch. Now let's see. Wait for a few more to come in. All right. Any more coming in? You are valued. Love that. Great motivational. That's like a great post it on your mirror if you need one. You are valued. Just one more second to see these come in. I'm loving the reflection. You're beautiful inside and out. Look at that. And thank you for caring coming in as well. I appreciate it. This is what a beautiful trophy collection. I will put that up in a case, high school movie style. I never saw one of those in my own high school. Maybe weren't good at sports, but a good time. And the reason we did this activity is sometimes we don't take a moment to stop and appreciate and recognize ourselves. It's something that we are often encouraged not to do. And so we're going to take a little bit of today to look at deprogramming a bit of that and looking at self-care as a practice. Few things that we recognize with this group and the amazing work you all do is just a laundry list of what you're holding and what you do. You do caregiving, finding new pathways, building bridges between people, mentoring, supporting families in those valuable but very like high emotional moments between people, community strengthening and life enriching. And the reason we're focusing on self-care, even though we're thinking so much in terms of what you do as influencing the community, is that self-care is community care. Supporting other people to live their lives takes emotional labor. When we talk about what Luna and I do, we talk about holding space as a big part of it. And doing that, holding that space is to strengthen community bonds. But if we do not understand how we are feeling and how we are showing up, not only are we not going to be able to do that work to the best of our ability, sometimes without even seeing it or being aware of where it's taking us, but we're setting an example to the people around us on the expectations that we're subconsciously holding on what it takes to do good work. And as we care about our communities, as we want to see them thrive and come up along with us, we need to understand and take a moment to realize we're a big part of that community. And if we're leading it, if we're not taking that moment to stop and pause and take space, we're not doing our best to ourselves and thus our community, because we are part of that, and especially in those leadership roles. So I'm going to pass to Luna, and we're going to examine some different types of community care and self-care that we can practice. Luna?
Thank you. So before you go on to the next slide, Glenn,
got you.
I just want people to take a moment because we're going to move through this. And if you've seen Glenn and I talk or present before, you know that we like things to be interactive. But today we also wanted to make it chill. So not heavy interaction, just a little light interaction. So if you have something to write with, I would grab that. Just because as we move through these different practices to help you balance your plates, some of these we're going to pause and have a little bit of exploration along the way. So I just want to make sure that you all get a chance to grab something. And also, one thing that I don't like a lot, and Glenn knows this about me, having worked with me for years now. I really don't like the phrase self-care without saying community care, because I feel like so often we just put this expectation on each other to just be like, oh, self-care, like you take care of your own wounds and all of that stuff. But if you get hurt, you need support from someone else to help you, right? Like if I were to break my arm, I can't just self-care my arm back to health. Someone else is gonna have to help me. And even once the doctor comes in and helps, like, give me a cast and everything, there are gonna be people around that might have to help me move through space differently, right? So community care is self-care. And on top of that, another reason why I feel like that the phrase self-care is like, what are we talking about? What are we actually talking about? So often people think self-care is getting your nails done or going to get a massage. And that could be a part of it, but actually what we're going to talk about today are different components of what we call self-care. So if you go to the next slide, we're gonna break it down. Awesome. So there's psychological care, emotional care, physical care, relationship care, workplace, and overall balance. And so we're going to move through all of these and take it one by one and really unpack what that is. And actually, after the end, as we move through this, there's a little assessment that we'll leave with you that you can use for yourself to kind of see which of these spaces am I really good at? Which of these spaces do I tend to go to when I hear the phrase self-care? Because, right, some of us think of self-care and it's just physical, right? It's just like, oh, I'm going to go on a run. And some of us think of the phrase self-care and it's just like, oh, it's spiritual or emotional, which is spiritual is one too. That's we'll see as we move through. So it's just like, oh, I'm gonna go to church, or I'm gonna go to connect with someone in my spiritual community, right? But as we see, there's a need to overall balance all of these in order to be taking full care of our full human selves. So next slide. All right, let's start with physical. So the thing about physical is really, you could say things like drink your water and do your weights and stretch and all of that, but really it's noticing how your body reacts to different experiences and paying special attention on regulating your own body. So some of these things might be things you're familiar with, which is great. Like what a great opportunity to synthesize things that you might have heard before as it comes to balancing ourselves and our plates. So really, the word regulation, right? How many people are familiar with like self-regulating, that phrase? Hand emoji. Yeah, a little bit. Well, if you're not, I'm happy to break it down with my friend here. Next slide. So this gentleman on the screen is Resma Manekin, who's a social worker. Shout out to social workers like working in direct service. And what Resma Manekin found is the importance of the soul nerve or the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is a nerve that's like up there near your throat, and it's really vital to your health and your well-being. Helps regulate your breathing, heart rate, blood pressure. It helps prevent inflammation. It can reduce pain, improve your mood. It's just like it's connected to all of these different things. So when we're talking about regulating, one of those things is paying attention physically to your vagus nerve, to your soul nerve. So it's intimately involved with how your body also reacts to other bodies. So you talk about caregiving, right? How important is being aware of your own balance and what's coming up for you physically when you're in a caregiving space, right? We might have all had those moments where you might just notice like whatever's happening around you, your heart rate's increased, your nerves go up, right? You're not necessarily maybe as well rested as you might normally be. You're not necessarily as alert as you might normally be, and you might start missing things. So Resma found that there's a lot of things that we can do physically to really connect and regulate our soul nerve, and that connects back to physical self-care. So these are just some practices, right? So a lot of times when people think about physical self-care, we jump all the way to like running. Let me tell y'all, I'm not gonna be running anytime soon. So there's just so many different things you can do to really connect with your body and help you stay calm and regulating. And these are 4 things that are scientifically proven to help that vagus nerve. So we have humming, we have belly breathing, we have slow rocking and rubbing your belly. All of these things are things that you can do. What I like about all these practices is that there are things that you could do in whatever moment you are in. You don't have to necessarily wake up an extra hour to go to the gym to hum, right? You could just hum, in your car or on your way to work, or, maybe in your office. If you're not, you got to check in with your coworkers to make sure people don't, that you're humming the right song. So we're just going to practice, just take a moment together, and we're going to just practice like rocking in our seat, actually. So just like that'll just give you a chance to kind of move your body, do some slow rocking back and forth. And you can notice yourself. I like to move front and back, but sometimes you might even notice now, for the folks who've been in a training with me, you might even notice like, oh, I do see Luna rock all the time. Sometimes I do it without even paying attention, but it's just like kind of nice, right? Just like to give yourself that rock. And when you think about it, these are things that we kind of instinctually do. As parents, we have a baby, we're rocking our baby. We instinctually know how to do that. Or even when we were little kids, we instinctually wanted to be held and rocked in certain ways. So all of these things are good regulating practices. And look at it. Look at that. Look at the people practicing right now. It feels good, right? Just a little bit. It just takes a minute to help connect back to that physical self-care. All right, next slide.
Oh, one more thing to add
Yeah.
on to the physical self-care. Kind of looking at how sometimes we get messages that center only the self and don't look at the community. A lot of the messages I got about physical self-care were about what I needed to look like in order to get value from other people. And it never really stuck with me. I was that kind of kid who was always in the Husky aisle when it came to shopping for clothes. And I felt so much of my control over self being external as opposed to internal. And when I made things internal and I focused on, well, how do I actually feel with the practices and the mindfulness I took? Then I saw that my influence on community became stronger, as opposed to performing a certain way and using that to influence other people because I was doing things the right way. My ability to hold that space in different communities and glow regardless of how much I was performing really turned that self-care I started practicing into community care.
Thank you for that share, Glenn. Really appreciate that. Awesome. All right, psychological self-care. So, when we're talking about psychological self-care, it's very much connected with psychological safety, which is the ability to be safe with oneself, like by yourself, and also with others. It's about having connection and access to different environments where it's okay to express yourself and your feelings. So think about it, like, where are the spaces where you feel like it's safe to express your full self, to express your feelings? Just take a moment to think about where those spaces are. And just notice if you find yourself thinking like, where is that space? Or if it's easy to think of maybe a few spaces, or if you're really struggling still to think of a few spaces, then I would just invite you to really kind of lean into this section and like pay special attention to your own psychological self-care, and maybe pay a little extra attention into ways that you can build out this space in your life. So one thing about all of this when it comes to psychological safety and those spaces is that it's often connected to stress, right? And especially when we're talking about balancing our plates, we have a lot of stuff on our plates. Sometimes that leads to a positive stress, right? It's like, oh, there's a lot to balance, but I can manage it. And sometimes it leads to an overwhelming stress. So I just want to make sure that I'm providing some information about that. So Glenn, if you can go to the next slide. So this is a slide on stress levels, including toxic stress. And so key thing here, when you think of positive stress, that's brief increases in heart rate, mild elevations in stress hormone levels. So it's just like, oh, this is, I don't know why I'm thinking of running analogies today, because like I said, I don't run, but let's use that as a analogy slash metaphor. Think about it like, oh, if I want to go for a run, it's going to be a brief increase in heart rate. It is going to stress my body. There's going to be a mild elevation, but I know when it's going to start. I know when it's going to stop, and I'm controlling that, right? So that's positive stress. Tolerable stress is serious temporary stress responses buffered by supportive relationships. So I'm thinking about, one thing that really stresses me out is when I have to go to the DMV. I am really stressed out by that. But what's the thing about that? It's temporary. It could be very serious. Sometimes, like what my plate is out of date, so I got to get that up to date. So that is a really serious stress, right? But there are some supportive relationships that I might experience after I leave the DMV. May not experience those supportive relationships at the DMV, but I may experience those upon leaving, right? And call a friend, go back home and be like, whoo, that was stressful, right? I need to get me some coffee, I need to get me some tea to relax, right? So it's a little bit more outside of my control, but it is tolerable because it's temporary. Toxic stress, or experiences of toxic stress, is prolonged activation of stress response systems in the absence of protective relationships. So it's when those stress responses, completely outside of your control, when those experiences are completely, prolonged, and there's an absence of supportive or protective relationships. So the key thing here, connecting it back to balancing what's on your plate and connected back to psychological self-care, is what's protective, supportive relationships, right? And making sure you have access to those as a space to kind of let yourself de-stress and relieve that stress. So I want you to take a moment, and I'm gonna be quiet for 1 minute to really give you the chance to think about it. But as you think, I want you to pull out something that you can write with and think about, where are the times or where are the spaces in your life where you experience positive stress? Where are the times that you experience tolerable stress? And where are the spaces where you might have experienced toxic stress, just to give you a chance to think about it. So thank you, Glenn, for adding that question in there. And I'm just going to be quiet for a moment and let us all journal about it.
We're going to do another 60 seconds of reflection time. All right, like bringing folks back together. Wanted to just pause and take the opportunity to do a bit of a share. Now, using your voice in whatever way you feel comfortable, whether that's wanting to come off mute and talking to the group and sharing with the group that way, or if you want to put some of the reflections into the chat, we just want to hear at those different levels, the positive, the tolerable, and the toxic, you know, what puts you in there, and even, you know, what helps you get out when you're in those spaces. To kick off, whenever I'm about to do an event like this, even with this group who I know so many of you and I'm familiar with you, I have that moment of positive stress. Like, I want to do a good job. Let me make sure, like, you know, I do my la 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 before and just get ready to present in a way that I know you all deserve. So there's stress there, but it's positive. It's motivating.
All right. I don't want to stress anybody out. So so if no one feels like they have something to share publicly, that's completely fine. This activity is mainly for you to wrap your head around it. I mainly want to hear Glenn say la 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 one more time before we keep moving.
La 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 la. There you go. There it is for the people. All right, we're going back to our PowerPoint.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And like I said, these journal activities are for you to kind of think through, look through, and come back to at your own time. So emotional self-care. I say this all the time, but we are affected by the world around us. I've been doing, my first job was actually not my first job, because I started working maybe when I was 15. But one of my first jobs was a direct support provider, direct service provider in Louisiana. And, you know, I from then on, I've been working in direct care in a lot of different ways. And I notice if I don't regulate my emotions, if my emotions are off, it's really hard for me to be and show up with other people. And so there are all these different ways that I've learned to just be able to check in with myself and connect with other people so that I'm able to show up and do the work that I need to do. So next slide, I want to give some examples of that. Thank you. Yeah. So these are 2 questions that we always throw out there as a practice to build emotional self-care. One, we hold and like honor the idea of breaking up with blame or shaming self and others. I think when you work with people, when you're always having like constant human interactions, at the end of the day, there's always like, oh man, I wish I could have said it this way, or I wonder how that came off, or I wonder how this person saw me. And there's a lot of questions of like, oh, I want to make sure that they know that my intentions are good. So just being able to check in with yourself and be able to know that like, hey, we're all working, we're all growing. This isn't about blaming anybody or shaming anybody. This is an imperfect science when you work with people, and we're moving forward in the best way that we can, right? And at the same time, practicing self-focus, understanding that you're the expert in your own lived experience. You're going to speak from your own experiences. Try to not make assumptions about others. And at the same time, with practice self-focus, it's really just like, hey, I'm going to try to be the best Luna I could be every day. Like whatever that is. That's who I could try to be, instead of trying to compare myself to someone else, or try to do this thing like Glenn. It's just like, no, I'm going to try to do it like Luna. And those are just 2 practices, and we call kind of like a observation of thought or something like that a practice versus a rule or an agreement or anything like that. Anything you want to add to this, Glenn?
Absolutely. I find with these 2 practices, they have very clear, but sometimes sneaky balconies on how they can be executed, and basements on how they can be executed. When it comes to the idea of like breaking up with blaming or shaming self and others, I think sometimes some folks can feel that what that means is not practicing accountability. And that is not the focus to it. When it comes to the blaming and shaming, those are practices that are about holding people to a punishment, whether that's self-inflicted or external, as opposed to the reflection and curiosity that is about leaving those things behind. Expressing curiosity is a great way to be invested in your growth, as opposed to putting a label on yourself on this is good and this is bad. It's looking at, oh, these actions build up my community and myself, and these actions reduce what I'm doing with my community and self. So sometimes folks can look at that and like, well, if I'm not engaging in accountability, then how can I be growing? And it's just like blame and shame are not complete accountability practices. Accountability is about having clear expectations for yourself and others, and being able to communicate those things and have those evolve as you develop those. So I think that's one opportunity to kind of look at that as, okay, let me really reflect on what's I'm leaving behind when I'm not using blame and shame, and what I'm gaining. It's that curiosity, that's that connection. It's that I'm not looking to achieve goodness, I'm looking to achieve growth of myself and the people around me. And then when it comes to that self-focus, it's not about being self-obsessed. It's about understanding the limitations of your own experience and being able to share that in a way that helps you connect with others. So that self-focus is about, I only know this much. This is the forest of life that I was born into, and I can only go so far without being able to meet someone else and then get their experience about where they come from, and having that share and exchange. And I think that's where we can lift those up to make sure that emotional self-care elevates ourselves and isn't part of that, well, I'm just going to retreat. It is about extending. So understanding the selves helps you extend yourself to other people.
Thank you so much for that, Glenn. I now have another activity. This one is for the chat, so I'll give you a chance to think about it, but it's also connected to emotional self-care, which I think is so deep, right? It's such a deep well. But if you go to the next page, roots and wings, I throw this out often, but I think it's a good way to, when we think about self-care practices that help us with emotional self-care, I like to think about it in these two ways. One, there's some things that help ground us, that give us roots, right? And there's some activities that help energize us, that get us hype and that give us wings. And so when I think about really like giving myself emotional self-care, I think about it in those two components of roots and wings. Like, what's going to help ground me? Sometimes I need to be grounded, and sometimes I need to be energized. So we're going to start with grounding activities, and using the chat feature. Love to see like a few examples. What are some activities or some things that you can do to help ground you, to help you feel rooted? For me, it's drinking tea. I love tea. I'm a big tea drinker. I'm also a coffee drinker. I like tea because it's cheaper. I don't have to leave. I like to leave my house to buy coffee when I do treat myself to a pumpkin spice latte or something like that. But with tea, I have so many things at home that I could use, and that helps ground me. I also like I like going for walks, and I like to run, but I do like to go for walks, and that is a grounding exercise that I can do to kind of help myself feel settled. Any other examples, feel free to throw them in the chat if there are activities or things that you do to help you feel grounded or rooted. Another walk taker, another walker. Absolutely. Ooh, working in the yard, gardening. Absolutely. There's like a little bit of yard work that will help me feel grounded, and then a little bit of yard work that will get me into that state of stress. But yes, morning and evening prayer, absolutely. Doing crafts, yard work, absolutely. Love these coming in. Yeah. let's switch to energy. What's some activities that help energize you, that give you wings? Like, and I know it's hard to even hear the phrase like give you wings without thinking about like Red Bull gives you wings, but literally just like that, like what lifts you up, what gets you excited to start the day or go on to an activity. I see listening to music, that's actually one that could be grounding or energizing. And a lot of these could be grounding or energizing, right? But you have to think about for yourself. So, what are some other activities that might be energizing for you to do, or that get you feel like it helps connect to something emotionally that you needed to connect to? Positive self-talk. Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's a really good one. Family time, being with family. Very much so. I love these because that what you'll find with all of these is that these self-care practices are very interconnected. So, yes, absolutely tending to our emotional self-care, we might find that it's necessary to be in those supportive relationships with family, with friends, with with our faith. All of those are supportive relationships that we can go to.
I'm seeing so many like family and friends being around happy people. It always reminds me, there was the Gallup who does a lot of big polls. They did a reflection and report on well-being, and one of the biggest indicators of professional well-being was if people felt like they had a best friend at work. Uh, and that stuck with me because there's so much language about, this is business, like this is professional, and then there's like the other part, I'm not here to make friends. It's okay to make friends at work. It's okay to make those connections. It's actually good for you on a data driven level. So that community aspect doesn't have to stay contained to your time off.
Thank you for that. And connected to that, as we move forward, there's a few more things we want to just highlight before our time is up for today. So connected to that, I just want to highlight spiritual self-care. That's something that's already we've seen in the chat, we've seen on the trophy, and this is very much an aspect of self-care. And whether or not your spiritual practice looks like practicing a specific faith and going to church, prayer, connection to a higher power, or it could look like going out in nature, reading a book, meditation, like calming breaths. All of that is connected to spiritual care practices that are helpful for our overall being. What I said here, I think is important to acknowledge, is that when we do human work, we need spaces to recharge in ways we may not always have language for, right? Like, so often there's so much science and language around like we got to increase our dopamine or we got to do that, but sometimes there is an energy that's palpable that you can feel, right? And connecting with people and supporting other people, and there may not be like a language for that yet, right? So there's like that basically leaves space for you know things that are not connected necessarily to evidence-based practices or science, but are still very much connected to our beings. And with that, I just have a question, next slide, for you to think about, and you don't have to put it in the chat, but think about and like hold when you're thinking about balancing your plate and all the stuff that you have. Remember, where is your source of inspiration coming from? Source or sources, and keep that close to you, because you know thinking about the why and your why for doing the work you do is really important in holding that balance. So I just want to just pause to celebrate and acknowledge the many sources of inspiration that are present in the room, and the many sources of inspiration that we have and we need to be able to continue to do the work that we need to do. All right, we're gonna land this plane with the next one. This is, Glenn said it. I mean, you already said it. I think it was really beautiful that you added that anecdote and that research about the importance of having friendships and connections. And that's important within the workplace, outside of the workplace, within an organization, outside of the organization. And just as a practice to give you the opportunity to practice that relationship self-care, I just want to give you a second in the next activity, if you want to go to the next slide, just like take a minute before we wrap up, and I'll give you all a minute going back to that journal that you have or that notebook that you have to really think about 4 people in your life right now that you feel like you can go to for support and connection. And truly the practice of listing this is a gratitude practice that helps increase your dopamine, kind of de-stress a little bit. So I do think it's important for all of us to take the time, just take a minute and write down 4 people that you feel like you can go to for support and connection as a practice in relationship self-care. All right, we have some shared. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. My husband, my best friend, my daughter, and your cats. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
I know a lot of people who will co-sign on cats as well as plants. So, support and snaps to that.
Absolutely. Well, all right. We have a few more things to share with you before we go, and an activity that you can take and kind of do on your own time. So workplace self-care, that was one of them. That was one of the practices. And what does that look like? That can look a lot of different ways. One, this meeting in itself is an aspect of workplace self-care, right? Just acknowledging having a group in a meeting time where folks can kind of come together and share and connect and learn best practices, as well as like the celebration that we heard at the top of the hour that we saw last week. That I cannot stress enough. I think more and more the things that Glenn and I tell organizations is that you can't celebrate and show gratitude enough, right? And so I think one thing that's often missed in that is that sometimes people feel like, oh, that has to be top down celebration or gratitude. And I say, anyone, all of us in an organization can share gratitude and celebrate each other on the day to day. And that's part of a culture that kind of keeps us going. So I think another question for you to think about, and this is just one for you to marinate on a little bit longer. So I'm not gonna pause, but I do want you to think about it after we wrap. But where are the spaces you can get support day to day within your work? Who are the people that you can call in your organization where you can say, like, this is the thing that I need help with, or can you help me take this off my plate, or can you maybe share this with me right now, right? Like, where are those people and where are those places? Because naming that and acknowledging that is super important, and it connects back to our humanness, right? Awesome. So as we end, Glenn, is there any way that you just dropped something on the in the chat, and I'm wondering if there's any way you can share it?
Yeah, I got that. One moment.
Awesome.
Okay, let me just stop the share. Got all our things, and I'm going to pull that up real quickly.
So you have, I don't like the word homework, I like play work. This is a play work that we're leaving you with. This is a self-care assessment that you can do, build on your own. It's all helpful for you to just kind of see and explore, like, where are the spaces of all the things we named that you might need to like add a little bit more in or add a little bit less in. And so uh, Amy will follow up with you, so you have this in the email as well. So you can send this out in the email, but it's already in the chat. But basically, physical self-care, psychological self-care, spiritual self-care, emotional self-care, relationship self-care, they all have a different list for each one, and you can kind of tally, these are things I do, or these are things I don't do, and just pay attention to where are the spaces that are maybe the first to go when you experience that stress. Like, which one of these practices of self-care, maybe it's for me, it might be physical. That sometimes is the first to go. When I'm really stressed and I don't have time, that's like the last thing I think of is like my body, right? But just notice, like, where are the spaces and where are these places where you can be adding more, and where is it where you're like, oh, this is doing really great, I can just continue to fill this out. So I wanted to leave you with that play work as you can continue to do the amazing work you do, but just want to leave you with resources that you can use to kind of balance all the work that you're doing in your very heavy plate. So I really want to thank y'all for being with us today, and thank you for having us.
Yeah, we have a couple more minutes here before we want to kind of hand back wrap up. Any questions you have, feel free to direct message us before we wrap up, or put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond. But as always, so great holding space with you all. This team is one I really enjoy working with. So thank you for having some extra time for us today.
Thank you both so much. And just for all the amazing tools and resources to remind us to take time to appreciate and care for ourselves too. I know everyone here does a fabulous job of doing that for everyone around them. So just to kind of self-reflect with that as well. So thank you so much. I'll leave another minute or so to see if anyone else has any thoughts or questions. Well, thank you once more, Luna and Glenn, for being with us. Really appreciated your time and helpfulness in that. And just as a reminder, the next meeting, it will be November 16th. That will be Zoom as well. In the meantime, if anything ever comes up, if you guys have questions on provider updates or anything at all, please feel free anytime to reach out to me. I'll go ahead and actually drop my contact information in the chat just in case you need it. But with that, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, guys.